بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور، يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور.
سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور، يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور.
صابرا في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور،
يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور.
صابرا في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور،
يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
كن إذا سموك اسما لتكن مثل الحضور، كن رفيقا كن عظيما كن كما تلك صقور. كن إذا سموك اسما لتكن مثل الحضور، كن رفيقا كن عظيما كن كما تلك صقور.
راقيا بالعلم نحو النجم مزدان شكور،
رافضا كل التدني رافضا نفس الغرور.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
ابن مسعود فقيه علم أحيا القفور، فإذا أعطاك رأيا كان سهما في النحور. ابن مسعود فقيه علم أحيا القفور، فإذا أعطاك رأيا كان سهما في النحور.
وعلي ثم بالدين معاذ ليبور،
اقرأوا التاريخ تروي عنه أفواه سطور.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
إن سألت عن إمام أو فقيه في الأمور، ابن عباس ترنم وسيبقى في الصدور. إن سألت عن إمام أو فقيه في الأمور، ابن عباس ترنم وسيبقى في الصدور.
فهو كالشمعة تذهب حتى تأتينا بنور،
ساهر بالليل علم وبأوقات سحور.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
إذ بكى النبي يوما سمعا صوتا جهور، يا أبي كم روت عنك الليالي والعصور. إذ بكى النبي يوما سمعا صوتا جهور، يا أبي كم روت عنك الليالي والعصور.
أنتم اليوم كنبت قد علا فوق الجذور،
يا أساس الدين يا صرحنا يا صلب الصخور.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. We have an amazing show today that will be discussing what is taking place in Pakistan. As you know, Pakistan has been in crisis for decades, to tell you the truth, but it has reached another level of crisis and chaos on the streets and the cities of Pakistan. And the future, even if what may happen looks, depending on your views of what's taking place, could be bleak, could be that the future actually looks very good. Now, to discuss these issues of what is taking place in Pakistan, the issue of the military, what's happened with Imran Khan, what's happening with the economy, the strategic nature of Pakistan and its armed forces, and everything else surrounding the what has been taking place in Pakistan the last 2-3 days. We have two distinct activists on the show today. We have Dr. Akmal directly from Peshawar live. Dr. Akmal is a professor, he's an activist, he's a political analyst. He's been here in the US, he's spoken in many venues, on many venues here in the United States, discussing not only the politics but the role of the Muslims, both in the West and the East. So I would like to welcome Dr. Akmal. And also, we have Brother Azeem Uddin. Brother Azeem Uddin, also an analyst, da'wah carrier, political, keeps an acute understanding of what's happening in Pakistan and also in the Muslim world in general, and also very active in the Muslim community here in Chicago. So I would like to welcome both of you to the show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to both Dr. Akmal and to Brother Azeem Uddin.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Starting with Dr. Akmal. Dr. Akmal, I mean, you are in Peshawar. Obviously, the streets are hot. The situation seems to be obviously, high tense. What is taking place in Pakistan? Is this new, or is this another plan to weaken Pakistan?
There are actually two angles to it, and one of them gives us a lot of hope, and the other one basically is an evidence that whatever is happening is something that has happened again and again and again. What gives us hope, especially the reason why Imran Khan has been able to garnish so much support, the traction that he's getting amongst the people themselves. Because when you want to discuss with the people, you would see them claiming that, okay, he's the person who stood up for the honor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, he's the person who said absolutely not to the US. That he's the person who said, are we slaves? Are we just to follow orders? I mean, don't we have our own thinking and our own minds and our own, decision making to do? And these are the ideas. I mean, when he talks about Riyasat Medina, when he talks about the Muslim history, when he talks about, Raja Dahir or Mir Jafar or Mir Qasim or Tipu Sultan or these type of peoples from our own history, it resonates. I mean, people are able to actually connect with these ideas. They have been so much fed up with all of this issue of trying to prove ourselves that somehow we are more Western than the Westerns themselves. And he's a person who speaks good English. He's a person who is well versed within the, I would say again, the Western moral issues and their systems and their ideas and these type of things. And he's able to articulate in a very good fashion. And I want to bring up this issue because, again, this is reflective upon the people of this region, the whole region itself, Pakistan and Afghanistan, all these areas, that people are attracted to Islam. People demand Islam. People support Islam. And that's one of the reasons why he is getting so much traction. That's why, I mean, sometimes his leaked audios, they come up and he is asked to give an Islamic touch. Because this is what people are actually, responding to. Now, coming to the other issue, when it comes down to, like what you said, to weaken Pakistan, and this is an unfortunate reality that this is something that has been happening again and again and again. In Pakistan, there are, whether right now it is the PTI, Imran Khan against PDM, and just a year ago, it was Imran Khan being the PM, and we had PDM agitating and being on the streets. And before that, it was PML Noon or Nawaz Sharif government, and we had Imran Khan agitating all over the place and talking about different issues, whether it was corruption or whether it was rigging in the elections. And then you can take the whole history of Pakistan. Almost every 4 or 5 years, you would see the same cycle reoccurring, happening again and again and again. Pakistan, this cycle itself, whether it is the switch between military rule and civilian rule, or whenever civilian rule is happening and there is this leg pulling, or you want to call it all of this power politics, power struggle, that one person is trying to just pull down the other person and wants to be in power at any cost. That's the whole problem, at any cost. So what we have right now, whether it is the political players, the judicial people, or the people in the military itself, each one of them very selfishly, very selfishly, they are just trying to go ahead and forward their own personal agendas, personal, I would say again, ambitions, trying to get to a certain post, be the PM, remain an army chief, get an extension, be the Supreme Court Chief Justice, get an extension, get applaud, get their own, this is all again about their own very interest and nothing more than that. The people are suffering. Like you mentioned, the state is weakening. The economic situation itself is in dire straits. There's talk about default. When it comes down to the foreign policy issue, Pakistan is a nuclear power.
Inshallah, Dr. Akmal, we'll come down to that.
In the international arena itself, if you look at its weight, it's zero.
We'll come down to this.
So these are the concerns.
We're going to come down to this, inshallah. We'll discuss these issues one by one, inshallah, because all of the things that you've mentioned are very important to at least understand what's happening. Brother Azzemuddin, you're in Chicago. I don't know if you heard what happened on the day Imran Khan was arrested. We had a huge rally here next door to us, few minutes walking distance. Within minutes, there was a whole organized rally and all kinds of stuff. And then people were screaming, Pakistan ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah. As Dr. Akmal was just mentioning that, look, everybody somehow is trying to give a Islamic touch to things. What is your understanding of this? Are these people, Sheikh, these political parties, are they so weak that they really cannot present anything other than slogans and to give Islamic touch, so they can just win hearts and minds and they can't give anything else?
I mean, that's an interesting reality. Like Dr. Akmal was talking about, the Pakistan was actually established as a country to implement Islam, essentially. And that was the only rallying cry for the division. The case for the division between India and Pakistan was that the Muslims want to establish a state where they can implement Islam. And they have been actually gauging the public sentiments about Islam in different Muslim countries, including Pakistan. So one of the things actually they have seen that over 90% of the people in Pakistan are for the Islam. And they want Sharia to be implemented. So they know that they cannot ignore Sharia. I mean, anybody from the beginning of the Pakistan till now, you see that any politician who wants to stay relevant among the people, they have to talk about the Islam. And that's really something that that's one of the things actually that Dr. Akmal was talking about. His Imran Khan's advisor was actually talking about, whispering in his ear, and there was actually a microphone that was on, and they heard that you have to give Islamic touch. And then Imran Khan started talking about the Islamic touch. So
he told him,
so they know
now would be a good time to say something Islamic.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I heard that.
So that actually shows you, I mean, in talk about Imran Khan, right? So he starts his conversations with Iyaka Na'budu wa Iyaka Nasta'in. He talked about the Riyasat al-Madina, right? So he knows that these are the buzzwords, that slogans that actually will make him relevant among the people. Now it becomes who is actually more clever, more adept at actually sloganeering compared to the competition, which is PML Nawaz or basically PPP. We see that his party actually seems to have resonated with the people because of the rhetoric. But when you look at the policy on the ground level, at the ground level, basically that actually is a completely different story. But in terms of the rhetoric, he actually has actually earned the hearts and minds of the people, including within the Pakistan and outside of the Pakistan. And like Dr. Akmal was talking about, he's a very articulate person. He speaks English very well. And he presents himself as a son of the soil.
But I would think he would have to speak Urdu pretty well rather than English in order to win the hearts and minds of the people of Pakistan. That's a dichotomy there. Huh?
He does do that. He does do
Yeah.
that. He does speak Urdu. He also speaks very well Urdu, by the way. I mean, better than the, for example, Bilal, for example, if I have to say, compare him, or even the Nawaz Sharif. One of the things that people have seen in him is that when he came to United Nations, actually, he gave this fiery speech, right? He was very articulate. And when they compare him with the Nawaz or the other, like Shahbaz Sharif or even the other guys, they're not able to actually express themselves as eloquently as he does. They say that, well, this is actually a guy that actually we love. Actually, he talks about Islam. He talks about establishing Riyasat al-Madina. Maybe we should actually throw our weight behind him. So that's kind of like why the people are actually with him. And all this rhetoric that Dr. Akmal was talking about, absolutely not, and then we're not the slaves and all those kind of things, that actually has the people being really rallying around this message. They want to become independent.
Dr. Akmal, the issue of him being able to win hearts and minds here, it seems like most of the protests took place in Punjab, and took place in Lahore, and this, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area, why is that, Sheikh? I mean, is he because he's Pathan? I mean, obviously he has a skill. He's able to come out as a Punjabi guy, as a Pathan or whatever it is. But why so much support in these areas? Because it doesn't seem like Karachi was hot, or the rest of the Pakistan didn't seem as hot as Punjab and Lahore.
This is electoral politics. Pakistan itself, although it has 4 federating units, and basically when elections happened, there are 172 seats that are being fought over. And out of those 172 seats, 105 of them are pretty much in Punjab. And from that Punjab, 80% of those seats are in northern and central Punjab, what you saw in Lahore and Rawalpindi and Faisalabad and Sialkot and these areas. So whoever dominates, whoever actually wins over the north of Punjab wins over Pakistan. It's a simple equation, nothing more than that. And that's what has been happening. Imran Khan, that is the largest province, yes. And not only the largest province itself, its population is roughly 60% of Pakistan. So whoever wins Punjab, he wins the government in Pakistan. So this is a problem. This is actually a very, I would say, dysfunctional problem within democracy itself. It allows the political players to ignore marginal areas. It allows them to ignore Balochistan. It allows them to ignore whether it is Sindh or Karachi or those areas, because they know if they're able to win north of Punjab, they can win Pakistan. So why would they worry about 10 million people in Balochistan? Why should they worry about the 30 million people in KP? So if they're able to win over the 110, 120 million people in Punjab, they can rule the whole world, the whole country. So that's why the battleground is pretty much the heart of Punjab. What you saw with respect to Lahore or Rawalpindi or these population centers of Punjab itself, and this is what's at stake right now between PTI and Muslim League Noon. These are the two that are trying to win over the people in this area, because these are the people that would bring the next government into power.
Brother Azzemuddin, what has been the role of the Pakistani, I guess, diaspora, or the overseas, the ones who are living here? What you're very active in the community here. Chicago seems to be your backyard. What are you gaining? What are you gauging from the people from Pakistan here? What are when they look at Imran Khan? What are they thinking?
They're thinking this is the only savior that they have. And we have what we call a savior mentality, or the messiah mentality. Most of the people think that the system is good. The constitution is good of Pakistan. It's just a matter of actually getting the right person in the office, and that person is going to bring the change that they're looking for. So, and when you look at the overseas Pakistani, actually a large number of Pakistanis are living outside of Pakistan. And the single biggest contribution they do to Pakistani's economy is that the remittances actually are sent from here outside of Pakistan to the Pakistan. And that's actually one of the largest revenue source of the foreign exchange reserves
Yeah,
for
$10 billion.
Pakistan.
That's what it looks
Yes.
like. $10 billion.
Yes.
And yeah, coming for that's an interesting issue. Dr. Akmal, this is I want to come down to IMF here, and they were saying this is one of the things that was mentioned, that 1.4, I guess what's promised to Pakistan, $1.4 billion. And then, but because of the crisis, the Asian Bank, I guess there's something, the Asian Bank, the World Bank, the IMF in general, all the money that was supposed to be coming, that they're promising, but they're not coming forth because of the crisis in Pakistan. But Sheikh, it seems like the economy is collapsing. Is this in some ways also a distraction here? I mean, would that be a good, a way to look at what's happening in Pakistan, that the whole economy is collapsing, so then create a distraction of this kind? Is it him? Okay, I think. Go ahead, Brother Azzemuddin, if you could take that before we get. I think something happened technically with.
So I mean, the issue that you see that all of Akmal is back, right?
Go ahead, Brother Akmal, if you could take that, or whoever,
so
doesn't matter. I mean, it's an open question in many ways.
please go ahead. I mean, I can pitch in later.
I mean, the present situation is not in the interest of the people of the Pakistan or the state of the Pakistan. So the present situation, you see that this is actually a chaos and a crisis, and you see that the people are against their own military. That is the last thing you want to see in any country, right? Because that eventually leads to the other things that are undesirable. So overall, the situation is weakening the Pakistan and the people of the Pakistan, because they're actually fighting with their own force. This is puts the power, the source of strength for them, and they are actually at odds with that strength. So
before we go to the military, the issue of IMF, that this seems, you're saying, what is the connection here, Sheikh? IMF and the military, is there a connection?
The IMF wants to make sure that their policies and their rules are actually being implemented in the country. So they actually want to make sure that the country, the more it's weaker, it's going to be more pliable, more agreeable to actually agreeing to the terms of the IMF. Because some of the terms of the IMF is to divest and sell some of the national assets that Pakistan has, which is some of the strategic assets that Pakistan has. They want to actually do a fire sale on those assets to be able to actually divest and actually make the whole country again more weaker. This means that in the longer term, the country is going to be more dependent on IMF than less dependent, essentially.
What do you have to say, Dr. Akmal? The issue, the role of IMF, it seems like it's almost running the country. I mean, it's.
I mean, the first fact, IMF is an extension of American foreign policy. It's a tool. It's not an independent decision-making body that one can say that would be honest and would have the interest of Pakistan at heart. It is a U.S. foreign policy extension and nothing more than that. Even the decision-making process within the IMF board itself, it is every member, his vote is pretty much weighted with respect to the economy, the size of economy it has in the world. So when American economy is looked at globally, it's around about 70%, 75% of the world. And that's what basically gives America the veto power in making any decisions. So the indecisiveness that right now IMF is showing with respect to Pakistan is not because of political turmoil or the prior decisions or some other matter. It's only about what America wants within the region. And this is a very important point. We cannot look at IMF as some kind of an objective institute that would have the interest of Pakistan at its heart. It is an institution that is to protect the dollar's hegemony. It is an institution that is to protect the rules-based order or global economy itself, or global, you want to call it free trade or whatsoever. It is an institution that is designed to make sure the hegemony of the West, or their superiority or their dominance, is protected and remains there. And whatever policies they give, they are not to protect, they are not to actually allow any country to come as a competitor to the US or to the West. So unless until we don't recognize this issue, we will not be able to see what IMF is trying to do. Yes, whether it is IMF or US or the West, they have kept Pakistan in a chokehold over almost last 20-25 years. When Pakistan wanted to develop its, I would say, electricity infrastructure, they wanted to build dams, whether it was in the Dasu Dam, Basha Dam in the northern areas. World Bank asked Pakistan to get a no objection certificate from India. Pakistan is not a member. It's a nuclear power, but it's not a member of the nuclear supplier group. There are only 43 countries in the world that have the capability to actually produce components and different type of instruments for the nuclear industry, and Pakistan is not part of it. It has been kept out of it. So Pakistan wanted to develop its coal reserves, and World Bank vetoed it, saying that okay, it is going to create pollution. So Pakistan, when it comes down to any type of energy resource, it has not been allowed to move forward. In one way or the other, it has been stopped from actually moving forward. Just today, I was listening to a news piece that Australia has commissioned a new coal mine in order to develop. China, every week, they are commissioning a coal-powered plant. Same goes with America right now. They're talking about the coal industry. But when it comes down to Pakistan itself, they have been more or less by design keeping Pakistan back. And one of the reasons for that purpose is because of the geopolitical issue that America wants to balance China out with India. India requires a peaceful, quiet Western border. And that would only happen if Pakistan is compliant. And how to do that? That would be through, the economic stranglehold. And that's where you see all of this issue about IMF being indecisive. It's only giving $1 billion, only $1 billion in 6-month time period. And just like you mentioned, the remittances coming from the overseas Pakistanis is in excess of actually $25 to $30 billion. $30 billion a year. They're sending per month $2.5 to $3 billion. And right now, Pakistan is negotiating with IMF, and IMF about a tranche of around about 1.141, something above $1 billion. And IMF is asking all of those different type of conditions. We have to recognize, as Muslims, IMF is not there to make us independent. IMF is not there to allow us to break the shackles that US or the West has around us. IMF is not there. Actually, there's not a single example in the whole history of IMF where it managed an economy to come up that can stand up against West. So what hope do we have from IMF, and thinking that, okay, if we go to IMF and somehow it's going to have a magical solution and help us come out of the economical quagmire? Unless until we dump dollar-based trade, dollar-based exports and all of those type of things, Pakistan cannot move forward. Remember, IMF is the gatekeeper of the dollar's hegemony. It would not allow us to challenge dollar's position or dollar's hegemony.
I'm going to come back to this, Sheikh, but there's something that you mentioned, that India wants a quiet Western border here. Bilal Bhutto was just in India, and I'm sure you saw the whole drama that took place with, I think it was Vijay Shankar. I forgot the foreign minister name, and all this mess that took place. And Imran Khan made a statement saying that why would you go there that you were going to be humiliated there? And but do the Muslims, anyone can take this, but when he came to US here, and then the whole issue of what he did with Kashmir with the 370, do people realize? I mean, he's very good at talking, and he was, he was chastising Bilawal Bhutto about this, but this guy went and sold Kashmir.
That is the reality. And actually, he didn't oppose Bilawal going to India itself. He even went ahead and blamed Jay Shankar being a very bad host and about not respecting their,
Yeah, I mean, that was a
guests
drama.
and blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
Even though he invited him. it seems.
Exactly. No, I mean, I'm not talking from that perspective. What I'm saying is that even IK himself, Imran Khan himself, he didn't condemn Bilawal going to India. Basically, he himself has said it publicly that, okay, what do you want me to do? Go to war with India? I mean, we have
Yeah,
to,
I
one way
remember
or the
that.
other, come up with a solution that would benefit the people of these two regions. And war is not an option. So basically, it's not that he has a different solution. It's not about that he has a different way forward. He is exactly the same reality. I mean, like you just mentioned about Kashmir being sold. So India unilaterally, 5th August 2019, withdrew the status of Kashmir. August. And
The
in
autonomy of.
November, Imran Khan was inaugurating the Kartarpur corridor for, the Sikh Yatris
The
to
bus
come into
yatra or whatever,
Pakistan
the
and
train
be able
yatra, I
to.
remember that, yeah.
Yes. Just 2 months. Just 2 months after surrendering Kashmir, there were Imran Khan and Bajwa and all of those type of people. They were, following confidence building measures. I mean, this is what has been always on the planning boards, that India has been asking Pakistan to come up with confidence building measures so that the situation between the two countries can normalize. And one of them has always been this Kartarpur Rahdari or Kartarpur corridor. So within 2 months of surrendering Kashmir, Imran Khan went ahead and inaugurated a confidence building measure. But anyways, I mean, that's what I'm just want to bring out this issue that basically
No,
just
I guess what I
by
was saying is
appearing
that,
tough.
what is it that, Brother Azzemuddin, what does PTI, I mean, I don't even want to discuss that. What do these parties or political movements have to offer to Pakistan that would build or develop or bring Pakistan out of this crisis? What have they offered other than power politics between them? And if I want to sit down and say, hey, here's the plan. Here's the plan that they're offering to us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And no one else has ever offered this to us. And because of this is going to make Pakistan develop or grow or come out of the crisis that it's in.
So when you look at all these political parties, whether it's PMLN, whether it's People's Party or PTI, doesn't matter which party you pick, they all have the only one solution, which is to basically toe the American the line that has been given to us. When you look at Pakistan, like what Dr. Akmal was talking about, the whole economics policy has been.
But won't somebody argue with you that, Sheikh, but somebody can argue with you saying, but this guy was going and saying that, oh, no, I'm against American intervention. He was. I mean, can't somebody argue with you and said you're saying he's going with American, he's showing the American line, but.
Let me show you one piece of information. Actually, in 2nd of May, there was actually a report that actually Tribune Express talked about. The PTI team, like 2 weeks ago, and I mean that on 2nd of May, 2 weeks ago, this means in April, they actually met with the American officials and they actually assured them that they are going to implement the IMF policies to the dot and T's, essentially. So there's no difference between any of these parties. They don't have their own plan per se. They are going to implement the IMF policies on the economy. They actually, even during the Imran Khan's tenure, he actually made the State Bank of Pakistan's governor to be coming from the IMF. And he gave him the immunity that nobody can challenge his decisions, essentially. So when you look at the track record for Imran Khan, it's like Dr. Akmal talking about it, when it comes to India and Kashmir, he was completely sold out those two causes for Pakistan. And then when you talk about the economic, the interest of Pakistan, it's completely sold out. He actually gave the State Bank of Pakistan to IMF appointee. And that he actually has been given the immunity from being challenged from any of the decisions, essentially. So when you look at Pakistan, so The economic policy has been set by the IMF, which Dr. Taw was talking about as really a U.S. Imperialist tool, and the foreign policy is set by the Pentagon essentially. So all these things, all of the decisions, how should Pakistan behave with Iran? Iran is next door to Pakistan. Pakistan is a huge energy crisis. Why aren't we getting the cheaper gas and natural gas and also the petrol from there? Nobody has actually a good answer for that because the US doesn't want that to happen, right? And how the Pakistan is going to have the relationship with Afghanistan, and how Pakistan is going to have the relationship with India and China and other countries, essentially. During the time of the Imran Khan, he actually slowed down the CPAC implementation as well. So, I mean, you see that they are actually implementing all the foreign policy objectives of the US. So none of the parties has any different thinking. They don't have any plan. The only thing that they can do is differentiate based on sloganeering. Or we are talking about we are anti-corruption, or we are anti this, we are anti that. Nothing but just a personal power grab, essentially. So nobody's thinking outside the box that's been set for them from the US perspective. Whether it's the economic policy, whether it's the foreign policy, and now the latest thing has been for the many years has been the social policy. With all the parties, with the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan's party, or the People's Party, or the PML Nawaz, all of them actually were on the same page when it came to the transgender bill in Pakistan. And within the tenure of Imran Khan, he actually implemented the policy objectives of those transgender bill.
I heard that was also dictated by IMF.
IMF and FATF.
My chacha is gay.
Yes, so it's essentially legitimizing the gay marriage and actually legitimizing people changing their
that was the book. It seems like that was the book that was passed out by this charity, I guess, and it said my chacha is gay. That was why chacha? I mean, why can't it be?
It's more than chacha being gay. It's also that they actually get the Joyland movie, right? That actually was funded by outside. Recently, the US has allocated $200 million for the social objectives. All these social objectives are essentially to fund these Aurat marches that happen in Pakistan, and all these kinds of situations that actually they're doing. They actually offer $500,000 to the teachers who are actually going to talk about the gay topics in the schools. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of money that's being thrown at people. It's all because of the U.S. intervention. Essentially, they actually have allocated millions of dollars for this effort. So when you look at it, it's really the Pakistan is wide open for the U.S. intervention. But it doesn't matter what area of life sector you're talking about. Everything is there. All the rulers are agreed on one thing, that they are going to toe the policies of the U.S. They are going to become the obedient servant of the slave of the U.S. Rhetoric may be different.
Dr. Akmal, here's the thing. So you're a political analyst. You're a thinker. You're sitting in Peshawar. I'm sure you play an important role. If you are put in place, you are put in power. You are said, hey, you're saying all of these things. What would you do? What is the plan? What plan would you offer to the Muslims of Pakistan? What vision would you give?
See, number one thing is for any nation to progress, it's very necessary that the solutions that are being given, it matches what people believe in. I mean, right now, like we're talking about IMF, or we're talking about even all of these different players and parties, PTI, PDM, PPP, technocrats, whatever you can name them. And they are providing solutions that are contrary, directly in contradiction with what people believe in, like interest. I mean, Quran says that if you are not ready to give up interest, then prepare for war with Allah and His Messenger. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that's where the first thing comes up. I mean, I already mentioned one thing that is very positive with respect to Imran Khan is that, okay, he has brought out a certain section of the population that was always considered to be liberal, that was always considered to be, more or less on the sidelines of Islam. and Islam was attributed to the people living in the mountains and backward people and rural people and blah 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 and these type of things. But these are the urbanites. These are
The
the
urban
middle
elite.
class, upper middle class people that are coming out and saying, those things like, look how he's talking about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's where the whole issue comes into. The Ummah, the people in Pakistan, first of all, they're ready for Islamic solutions. Number two thing, when it comes down to all of these sections are different areas, whether it is the political setup that Pakistan has, the foreign policy issues, or the economic issues. If you want to go into the economic issues first, I would say that, okay, first of all, the thing that has kept Pakistan in a chokehold is the whole energy sector. The energy sector, there's right now 2.5 trillion rupees worth of circular debt. The private ownership,
What does
the
that mean?
capitalists themselves,
What does that mean again?
basically, it is a supply chain management issue, that different parts of the supply chain itself, rupees being owed by one party to the other party, and it's growing again more and more and more, whether it is when it comes down to the international suppliers of LNG and diesel and furnace oil and different other type of products, or it is the powerhouses that produce electricity, and then they're selling it to the transmission company, and then the transmission company is providing it to the distribution company, and then the distribution company is collecting the bills from the people or the customers. So at each step there are certain number of delays, or there are certain number of losses, because of which this circular debt is growing. But the point is, at the expense of the people, at the expense of business, at the expense of economic activity, a very small section, I mean small is actually very huge when come, because it's numbers, it's just 10, 15 different private owners of electricity producing powerhouses that are earning billions of dollars, not rupees, dollars,
Wow.
by skimming out of our pockets in profits.
So, Sheikh, before
Now
you go
this
on,
is something in
hold
Islam.
on. Is it true that the Pakistani public itself is one of the richest, and the government being the weakest when it comes to? I mean, is
No,
that
there's some truth to it, but at the same time is also a little bit of propaganda. But just let me complete what I was
No, go
trying
ahead,
to say
I just
before
wanted
that,
to
because
go
it's
ahead.
important. Because what I'm trying to say is, look, if we go to the Islamic principle, the Islamic ruling, the fiqh ruling about public properties, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "An-nasu shuraka fi salas, al-ma wal kila wal nar," that people are share, or they own three things. It is water, pastures, and fire. Fire being the energy sources. Islam does not allow, it is haram in Islam to privatize powerhouses. Whether it is electricity, whether it is coal, whether it is gas, whether it is petroleum, any type of energy resource, it is haram for any person to privatize, any goods. So if Islam is the only way forward for us. If Islam comes into ruling in Pakistan, that is one of the very first decisions. Right now, Pakistan is paying annually. Pakistan's last budget, Pakistan had an expenditure of 9,000 billion rupees. And out of that 9,000 billion rupees, Pakistan has paid 5,500 billion rupees in interest payments.
Jeez.
5,500. That's almost 65% of whatever
total
Pakistan
income.
collects from its own people, is paying it in interest to banks, its own banks and international lenders.
So 60% of the
So
GDP.
not GDP, not the GDP,
Revenue.
the expenditure
revenue.
that the budget was made.
Of-
So 9,000 billion rupees. So GDP is a completely different number, but that was the money pool available for Pakistan that it wanted to spend upon its own people. 9,000 billion rupees. Out of 9,000 billion rupees, it gives to banks 5,500 billion rupees. And what it spends upon its own people was measly, around about 500 billion rupees in developmental projects and funds. 500. Compare those two things. So that is a red line. Islam makes it haram for us to deal with interest-based transactions. Fiat currency, right now in Pakistan, the food inflation is around about 40%, above 40%. And you have to understand that food itself constitutes almost 40% of the daily income of Pakistani population. So when you say 40% is inflation with respect to the food items, it is hitting hard right with where it hurts the most, the stomach itself. People are struggling with respect to that issue. Inflation, the major cause of inflation, is this worthless paper-based currency, the fiat currency, the floating currency. Islam gives us the currency that is gold and silver. And gold and silver, it's historically documented that gets rid of inflation, gets rid of speculation, gets rid of exploitation by foreign powers where they can manipulate the value of any currency that exists. These are just 3 points right now I mentioned. There are so many other things that would completely revolutionize the whole Pakistani economic spectrum. We will not accept national borders. It would allow the strength of the Ummah in different regions to be combined together.
Are you saying that you would, in your vision, you would remove the border between in Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Oh yes.
That's interesting. I mean, so how would that work? I mean, you okay? Go ahead, tell me more.
I mean, look, the only impediment is this one man, one vote principle. The only impediment, the only hurdle that exists is majority rule. The only impediment, the only hurdle that is in front of us is by defining rights, by defining, the role of people, power through this democratic mechanism. Islam tells us that.
Why would Afghanis want to be part of Pakistan? They would be considered minority under. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Under one man, one vote situation, under majority rule situation. Yes, who would be in their sane minds think that, okay, their population is 40 million, Pakistan's population is 250 million. Why would they like to become a minority in Pakistan? But no, we're saying you and us, we are brothers. And we are equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we would decide our disputes only based upon Qala Allahi wa Qala Rasul, the Quran and Sunnah. There, the difference within numbers, the difference within sects, the difference between gender, the difference between even financial situation, whether somebody is wealthy like Karachi or Lahore, or somebody is not as wealthy like Quetta and Peshawar, they become equal because now the burden exists upon any claimant of any right to bring an ayah, to bring a hadith, and that's it. You don't need, that's what's the problem right now happening in Balochistan. Their population is around about 10 million people, but they are rich in resources. They are afraid that if this principle of one man, one vote, of majority rule exists, they might become a minority within their own province. If Gawadar is to become the next Karachi, the Balochi people would become a minority within their own province. So why wouldn't they be afraid?
Yeah.
If majority rule, if one man, one vote principle is upheld, anybody would be afraid. We're saying no. We're categorically rejecting this paradigm, this foundation and platform, because this is something that divides people, doesn't bring people together. We're saying, look, we're going to resolve our disputes. It's a complete different mechanism of dispute resolution. It is different from republicanism, of parliamentarianism, of whatever democracy and secular institutions have propped up in the last 200-300 years. We're saying our disputes would be only resolved based upon revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And each one of us, whether he is Tajik in Tajikistan, or Turkmen in Turkmenistan, or in Afghanistan, or in Balochistan, or in KP, or in Sindh, or Urdu speaking, Sindhi speaking, Punjabi, Pashtun, whatsoever it is, we would resolve our problems based upon only on one principle, and that is Qala Allahi wa Qala Rasul, and nothing else. A majority does not make an issue. It's not about a minority. That's why when a woman came to Umar radiallahu ta'ala,
Sheikh, because I
just
go ahead.
yes,
I guess what I'm asking is that these political movements are claiming Islam, right? They want Islam. So when you present, if you are able to present this program, where is the rejection coming from? I mean, they are screaming,
No, I mean-
Pakistan ka, matlab kya la ilaha illallah. But then why don't they want the Islam you're presenting?
See, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, he went to India and somebody asked him, a question about him being a religious scholar and about democracy. He said, look, I'm a religious person who practices democracy. And that's where the whole difference is, that the secularization, what does it mean? What is secularism? Secularism is basically that, okay, you give on to Caesar what is Caesar's and you give on to God what is God's. So Pakistan is a secular society. Even our religious people are very, very secular. They understand the division of roles. They know that, okay, their role is limited to a mosque, and they're just supposed to talk about morals and akhlaq and prayer and fasting and zakah and hajj, and that's about it. It's not their domain to talk about the judicial setup or system. It's not their domain to talk about economic problems and economic solutions. It's not their domain to talk about the political structure in Pakistan, whether it should be a federal system where there is a division of power between the center and the province and then the city-state, or it is the division of power, trichotomy of power between the judiciary, legislative, and the executive. I mean, they have resigned themselves from all of these discussions. And when it comes down to Islam, it is only that, okay, I'm a pious person who wants to implement IMF. I am a pious person that wants to implement interest. I'm a pious person that wants to implement the division of Muslims through the borders, that whether it is between Kashmir and Pakistan or Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's a pious Muslim, with the tasbih, like when Imran Khan goes to Medina, he removes his shoes and is barefooted and is roaming around over there and showing all of, whether it's Nawaz Sharif sitting in front of the Roze Rasul with a Musaf in his hand and reading Quran and praying 2 rakah something over there, or it is, Fazlur Rahman, whatsoever. These are antics. These are optics. They're just trying to present themselves as holy people, being pious people that are implementing the policies of IMF. They are implementing the policies of Pentagon and State Department, and nothing more than that. These are secular people. And unfortunately, that is something that has not been clearly established in Pakistan. That what is the difference between a person that portrays himself to be a very pious person, a very namazi and tahajjud guzar and person who fasts and person who gives charity and all of those type of things, but how do I judge his policies? It's a very important actual distinction. It's not enough for a person to be a pious person. What I need to understand is what is the policy that he wants to bring forward to resolve my education issues, resolve my economic issues, my political issues, my international foreign policy issues. And if those solutions have their foundations in the Islamic jurisprudence or not, the Islamic nas or sources or not. If it is something that is coming from a foreign source, okay, I have to reject it because this is not Islam. But what's happening in Pakistan, unfortunately, is there's a very strong reliance upon personalities. We look at personalities. We accept their rights and wrongs. We accept whatever they say, whether it is haram or halal, just because, okay, he's such a nice person. Look at his misbah in his hand. Look when he goes to Medina. Look what type of speech he made in United Nations. Look at the charity that he did. We're not able to recognize that, okay, betrayal of Kashmir, selling of Kashmir, this was something haram that was committed. We have to look at the ground reality, and we have to remove these deceptions, that, okay, if a person has a miswah in his hand, he is equally capable of selling Kashmir with respect to the person who doesn't have it.
Brother Azzemuddin, the regional issue. I mean, we have to discuss two more issues. One is the military and the regional. The role of Pakistan in the regional, in the region itself. For instance, the India. India, China, and Pakistan. Pakistan has always, like all you guys have been mentioning, that it has always played in the hands of the U.S. It fought the Soviet Union for the U.S. I mean, Afghanistan did, but obviously played a role in it. And then when it came down to Afghanis fighting the Americans, again, it played a role in it, the ISI, and we all know what happened there. It seems like almost 100,000 soldiers were killed of Pakistan during this whole 20-year war that took place. I mean, it has always been bleeding for the Western interests. And now it seems the Americans have another concern, that's China, and they want to prepare India to kind of stand guard against China. What role does Pakistan play in this? And what are your thoughts in this? What does America have in plan now, and do the people see it?
That's a very good question, because when you see that the American plan in the region is to prop up India to be the first line of defense against China's rise. So what they want to be India to be the sacrificial lamb for their interest to counter China. How successful they are, the time will tell. But to be able to do that, India asked them to give themselves reprieve, or actually some kind of like allowance, a concession from Pakistan, so that they can actually focus their attention to China. So for example, in China, just to keep the hold on Kashmir, they actually had about 500 to 700,000 troops were actually deployed inside of Kashmir to be able to hold down to this region. And because of the Pakistan was applying pressure from outside as well, that actually was kind of needed there. So as part of like the 2019 August, that 370 was discussion that happened, India actually unilaterally took away the special status that the Kashmir had, and Pakistan did not do anything. I mean, the Imran Khan, who actually claims to be the implementing the Azzemuddin and actually being in favor of the Kashmiri and the interests of Pakistan, he was one of those people who said that anybody who crosses over the border and tries to help their brothers in Kashmir is a terrorist, is like working against the interest of the Pakistani state. The only thing that he put up as a resistance was that people should stand up and put it like a black band-aid, some black band on their arms, so that at least to show the solidarity with the people there. So because of Pakistanis pulling back of their help in Kashmir, India was able to redeploy hundreds of thousands of troops from Kashmir to against China, essentially. So this is actually giving a huge relief to India, because they don't have to actually spend that much effort in actually keeping as a constant threat from coming from Pakistan. So this was the strategic assurance that the America gave to India to be able to actually help prop up India against China. But this comes at the cost of the national interest of the Pakistan, because they actually had always been maintaining since 1947 that Kashmir is the part of the Pakistan because of the Muslim majority area. And that all those previously held notions and the values and the statements actually they had been making all along, they actually have been put into the cold storage, that they are not going to pursue any of those things.
Dr. Akmal, is India that stupid? I mean,
India is not that stupid, because India is trying to ride the wave, because they know that without the U.S. help and the intervention, they would not be industrialized and actually have achieved this kind of a progress right now. If you look at the India, for example, just the revenue from the software development and the software companies that actually have opened up India, because of the strong participation from U.S., they would not be that high of a. I don't exactly remember. I don't know, Akmal, if you remember the amount. It's north of $100 billion on a yearly basis that actually they get from just for the software. And there is actually a strategic interest, a strategic position that the U.S. companies have to invest in India. This means that they are actually actively propping up the Indian economy. So India is riding the wave. So they're actually getting something out of it. The question really is, what is Pakistan getting out of it? Pakistan is getting out of nothing. They are actually have these puppet rulers who are actually betraying the trust of their nation and the people, and they're actually sacrificing everything that they have for the just to be able to rule in the country and basically steal the resources of the country. And that's why they need people who are able and pliable and be easily compromised, meaning that they are corrupt people in the rulership, whether it's going to be the judges, whether it's the military personnel, whether it's the politicians. They need people who can be easily bought and sold, essentially. So that they can compromise on the national interest of the country of Pakistan.
Dr. Akmal, what Brother Azzemuddin is saying, I mean, at least when it came to India, Pakistan used to be aggressive. It showed some type of muscle. It was, it was always India policy and things like this. So now, what happens? I mean, the whole idea of a strategic depth, I don't know if you remember when the whole Afghan situation was going on, that there was some type of a vision with Afghanistan and further down that way and with India. I mean, what has happened to the intelligentsia of Pakistan? I mean, who thinks for Pakistan? If there is anyone thinking at all, but I'm saying where are the thinkers, the real statesmen, where are they, and what, there has to be, I mean, look, for instance, in India, I was listening to these two professors, or, I don't know, they're famous podcast out there talking about, they were talking to, these are politicians who are in Washington, but they are American Indians and things like this. And they were saying that, look, we have to understand India. We know what America wants from us. We understand that. They do understand that there's a role that America wants India to play against China, but India has to be very strategic in how it maneuvers. So there are people thinking for India. How about Pakistan? And do they look at these matters the way you and I are looking at?
See, the first thing is, unfortunately, physical chains are much more obvious than intellectual chains. So Pakistani elite, they have been trained to think in very Western fashion. When it comes down to
Indians are thinking the same way.
Yeah, that's fine. But that's where the basic issue comes in, whether it is a balance of power. Most if you look at the Western foreign policy for the last maybe 200-300 years, it has actively been controlling regions through this balance of power paradigm. That whether it is balancing out India versus Pakistan for the last maybe from 1947 all the way up to almost 1999, 1998. India was in the British camp, Pakistan was in the American camp, so both of them had to be balanced out. And that's where, the thing that you mentioned, that Pakistan had a very India-specific type of approach. But then after 2000, especially after the victory of BJP and America aligning itself with China and trying to decouple from China, wanting to replace whatever China is doing with India and Indian resources and Indian human resource. And that's where a new role for Pakistan came up. And now the problem was that there was so much inertia behind all of that anti-India rhetoric that existed for 50 years. And it required a lot of time just to reorient the population of Pakistan, reorient the institution of Pakistan from anti-India version to some kind of a collaborative type of setup. And that's where even Bajwa, General Bajwa himself, he introduced this doctrine, East-West connectivity. That, we have to move away from geopolitics and into geoeconomics. And looking at, this mentality itself, this slave mentality where we're looking for the crumbs that are falling off the master's table. Unfortunately, this is a very, again, ingrained type of mentality that, we are not in position to challenge the West. We are not in position to fight America. We cannot do this. We cannot do that. And we need to be satisfied with, we need to be content with whatever we are receiving right now. So they're always looking for peanuts. Now, unfortunately, they're always looking forward for peanuts. They're always looking forward to sell something. They don't have a role for themselves. They don't know what they can, what the potential they have, and where they can actually. I mean, let me give you an example. Although this example has to do with again our political leaders, but still, Asad Umar, he was the finance minister of Pakistan for first 9 months of PTI government. And in one of his speeches, he said that he envisions Pakistan to be the 5th largest economy in the world in 100 years. Who has seen 100 years? They don't even have the guts.
They don't have a
say
plan.
After 100 years, we would be number 1 in the world. I mean, can you imagine this mentality?
No, I'm just imagining the mentality of the followers. I'm not even looking. This is the question I'm asking.
But this is not limited.
Dr. Akmal, I mean,
this is not limited.
I mean, but what has happened to us? What has happened? People are ready to give their blood and their limbs to these people who are talking nonsense like this. I mean, where are we? I mean, as far as our minds, I'm talking about, I guess, the average people that are willing to accept. I mean, what is that even? 100 years, I'll give you something to eat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, see, that's where the whole issue comes down to. The popular politics is much easier. I mean, look at even West itself. Look at Trump. What is Trump doing in US?
He's coming back in power, I guess.
Whether it is Trump or whether it is like England or European countries or whatsoever, popular politics is something that even the US founding fathers try to prevent. They try to build within the system that, okay, popular politics will not damage the system. Look, I mean, they have the Senate that has a member for 6 years, but the House of Representatives is refreshed every 2 years. They don't want the popular politics to be able to disturb or affect the state itself. So they understand this issue itself, that the people themselves could be driven or could be motivated or could be, energized very easily through rhetorics and through certain type of sound bites that resonate with people. And that's where the whole issue comes down to. We don't need personalities. We don't need followership of personalities. What we need is followership of actually ideas. So whoever is on an idea, okay, I will support him. And whoever is against the idea, I would reject him. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, we have a very strong culture of, it's not only Pakistan, actually, it's a global phenomenon.
Unfortunately,
it's much more easier to follow personalities. Whether it's a Modi person in India or Trump here or Boris Johnson in England or Hitler in Germany, and it's so much easier to actually follow individuals rather than to think and to come up with a decision and then try to follow that.
Sheikh, but Azzemuddin, where do the elite of Pakistan come from? I mean, I'm trying to figure out.
That's a very interesting question, because when you go back to the history, the elites of the Pakistan actually were created and nurtured by the Britishers. So people who actually are the policy makers right now, if you go back in the history, these were the people who actually betrayed the trust of the Muslims who in 1857 trying to fight the war of independence against the Britishers. So the people who actually helped with the Britishers, they were rewarded by the Britishers to actually, in terms of the land grants, they actually cultivated them into the political elites, essentially. They also took the princely states people and people actually who saw some potential in them. Actually, they took them and actually took their wings and actually took them to the London and the other schools of the Britain and actually got them trained over there. So their loyalty is basically has been with the British. So that's the elite that actually has been with the Pakistan, and they are the one who actually considered the most patriotic. Anybody else who actually says anything else, actually they're not the patriotic. So that's kind of the reality of the landowners and the political tycoons or the titans over there. They actually have been the product of the British nurturing, essentially. And then when the America came into the scene in 1947 and onwards, they kind of found it easy enough, or I should say expedient, to kind of change the loyalties with the Americans, essentially. And the Americans not only not relying on these politicians, they actually found their the strongest ally in the armed forces. So they, since the Ayub Khan, there actually has been very close relations between the U.S. and the Pakistani army, essentially, and those people, as institution, they actually have been helping them and actually being nurturing those relationships with them, essentially.
The military, Dr. Akmal, the issue with the military, is the military divided? What is happening with the military? And as far as what I heard with this whole situation in Lahore, I mean, the army chief's home was open for anyone to just walk in and do whatever they want. What is going on within the army, Sheikh? Do you perceive a shakeup in the army? Is there going to be a new army chief? Supposedly, even Asif or Asim Munir was not even in the country.
Exactly, yes. He was not in the country. He was visiting Oman. And Lahore, it was the Corps Commander's residence. It was not the chief's residence. And look, whatever institution, it's a human institution, and it would always have factions. And whether it is the judiciary, whether it is the military, whether it is the political house, I mean, parliament and senate and the prime minister and whatsoever, all of them have factions, and all of them have infighting that exists over there. Now, when it comes down to the military itself, whether there are factions there or not, it was obvious. I mean, just a few months ago, General Bajwa was trying to get an extension for himself, and he used Imran Khan very effectively to prop up pressure upon the PDM government so that he can get an extension. So whether it was the Long March in November or it was the Long March in May, they were kind of designed to pressurize the PDM government so that Bajwa would be given an extension. And once it was realized that, okay, he will not get an extension, then the next best option, or the Bajwa camp, or there were different camps within the military itself. One of the camp was Asim Munir. It is claimed that the other camp was General Faz, that wanted to become the army chief. And so there was more or less an infighting between the two. So even right now, it is claimed that, okay, behind PTI, there is a certain faction from the military itself, whether serving generals or retired generals, that gives the confidence to Imran Khan and his party to be so pompous and boastful and so defiant. And basically, that's the reality right now. But it appears Asim Munir is in control. And although there are rumors, and although there are media posts, social media posts that are being shared here and there about different people being either fired or removed or those type of things, but it appears at least Asim Munir has his house in order, but still yet to be seen. I mean, the situation is developing. Maybe another week or 10 days, especially 14th of May is an important date, because Supreme Court had announced that the election should...
Right, they're asking for... Can the country go into complete emergency mode?
Yeah. Okay. Man, I mean, these people, remember, this is the army that used to serve British. And for British, they kill their own people.
So is there any hope? I mean, when you hear things like this, I mean, these are the kind of people who are ruling us. These are the political elite who basically, I mean, what is the hope here? What hope is there for when you're hearing this? You're saying, look, here's the military that is willing to kill its own people for foreign interest. Here are the elite who came into power because they stabbed in the back of the Muslims, revolting the British. Where should we look for hope, Sheikh? Where is the hope? Brother Azzemuddin, go ahead. And I would like to hear that from Dr. Akmal also. I mean, being on the ground.
So the only hope that we have is being the Muslim, that we look for the Islam for the solution, essentially. I mean, like I was talking about the public opinion survey actually that's being is scheduled in a lot of big Muslim countries. Even Pakistan, actually, the public opinion is still with Islam. When you ask point question, do you want Sharia? Do you want something else? So they always give the answer, yes, we want Sharia. So when we see that the people are with Islam, they want Islam. And they have been fooled over and over again by these Islamic slogans, like the Riyasat al-Madina, right? "Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in," in front of the speech. He says that, and then he betrays the Kashmir. He actually sells out Kashmir. He talks about taking the interest-bearing loans from IMF and World Bank, essentially. So how does that "Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in" actually correspond to the actions? That obviously is very, very well visible to everybody. So the people have their interest and they actually hope with Islam and they want Islam to be implemented. So our hope is only from Islam. So that we think outside the box that we have been put in by the US, whether it's IMF economic policy, whether it's the foreign policy or the social policy that's been given by the US. We need to actually look to Islam for our solutions for our problems. And that's the only thing that Dr. Akmal was actually talking about, how this would look like in Islam. Once we implement Islam, basically to implement the political system from Islam, which is the Khilafah system, then we would be able to actually implement Islam comprehensively and be able to actually solve all these issues that we just talked about today.
Brother Dr. Akmal, your view. I mean, because especially when I heard you saying that, look, here's the elite, the Pakistan, they're both so-called and Islamic and at the same time they're secular. How are you going to sell this? I mean, the idea that Islam works to a secular.
Look, even secularism and democracy has been sold to the people of Pakistan as being Islamic. So that's a very important, I would say, point, that the traction that secularism and democracy received within the Muslim world, actually, it was because it was sugar coated with Islam. And socialism was rejected because it came in and said, oh, look, we have to reject religion and religion is bad for people. And people didn't take it, actually. Now, the other thing that I would say, you mentioned about hope. Right now, I would say something different is happening that has not happened in the past in Pakistan. The very elite, the very people that have the luxury to think about policy and about the direction of the country and all of those type of things, they have been forced to think. They have been forced to decide, okay, what is the way forward? And I think so, especially with the people, I would appeal to the diaspora, the Pakistani diaspora, the overseas Pakistanis living all over the world itself, whether it is Europe, Canada, America, England, or Middle East. And especially the one that have the education, or I would say the background that allows them to be able to compare systems, to be able to study systems, to be able to more or less, again, look deeper into the ideological frameworks through which solutions are given and implemented. Right now is the time for us to move forward with Islam. Islam is the one. Islam is what unites us. Islam is what energizes us. Islam is what gives us the confidence and gives us the courage and, I would say again, contentment with which we can implement the solutions of Islam on long-term basis, not something that would be short-term. Now, when it comes down to the Islam solution, whether it is about industrialization, it's a very important point, that right now any discussion about industrialization is only studied vis-a-vis what was the European experience. When it comes down to prosperity and building an economy, the only study is what was the Western experience. When it comes down to the issue of the social structure or the state itself being able to deliver for the people, the only study that happens is with respect to what the European experience was. We have 1400 years experience of implementing Islam. Islam was implemented from the time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated into Medina all the way down to 1924 when Mustafa Kemal demolished Khilafah. That's round about 1400 years 1300 something, 1400 years of implementing Islam. We made cities of gold and silver like Timbuktu, where people wanted to, from Europe itself, go and see that place and die trying finding it. So we have a very rich history. And right now, as I said, the Pakistani elite, their confidence in the Western model has been shaken. They're looking for a way out. They're looking for a way forward. And this is an appeal. This is actually a call for action towards them. Even as I said, for the overseas Pakistanis, that for them to be able to support ideas and not personalities. This is something that right now, okay, who would actually take the Pakistani power producing companies back from privatization and declare them as public property? Is there any party, PTM, PTI, PPP, or even the military technocrats whatsoever, that would be able to make a policy decision like that? For them to declare that, okay, we are going to finish or completely wean ourselves off from dollar dependency, and we're going to go for a currency that can truly be a global currency and compete with any currency in the world, would be gold and silver. For them to study this issue, that, okay, what is the best path towards industrialization? Would it be through startups and IMF driven policies, or it has to be something independent of IMF? So the moment idea becomes forward, idea becomes supreme, the moment we start believing in idea. Look, what was the distinction of the first generation? When Rubayy ibn Amir, look at the mentality. I mean, subhanallah, when he faced Rustam, who was Rustam? Rustam was the emperor of Persia. And he offered, I can give you riches beyond your imagination. Return. Can you imagine today anyone all over the world, all over whether it's Pakistan or Indonesia or whatever, all over the Muslim world, any single Muslim who would have the courage to say what Rubayy ibn Amir said at that point when Rustam offered him riches beyond imagination? We are ready to surrender for $1 billion. And he said, we have been delivered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to liberate mankind from the slavery of mankind to the worship of one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nations move forward. Nations progress when they believe in an idea, not because they adopt or they mimic or they imitate an idea. We have to decide for ourselves. And this is a turning point for our elite, for our intellectuals, that right now they have lost hope. They have lost confidence in whatever the West had to offer, whether it is democracy or IMF solutions or whatsoever. They don't know which way we were supposed to go, what to do.
Brother Azzemuddin, here's
that's
the thing.
Where our role comes in as well.
Just to highlight this issue, I was watching this interview that was being done by an Indian. We just have a minute left here. An Indian, I guess, a journalist, and she was saying supposedly she was in Pakistan. She was interviewing Imran Khan, and she said that it was very interesting to see that most of the people, at least a lot of people working around him, were Pakistanis who had studied overseas in London, Paris, US, and they were advising him. They were bringing the Western touch, the marketing part, how to, and I'm saying this from more of a positive perspective here, is that you being in the West here, you're obviously in Chicago. I mean, what do you see the role of the youth from Pakistan here? What should they be thinking? I mean, obviously they're going and helping someone they think they believe in, and that somebody might bring some change, positive change, finally, to Pakistan. What do you see? What role should the Muslims of Pakistan play from here to bring change in Pakistan, a serious change in Pakistan?
Right. I mean, one of the things actually, I look this as a positive thing among the ummah that they are ready for a change. They are actually vying and dying for the change. Essentially, that they think this is the right change. Essentially, so this is I see this vitality of the ummah that is not dead yet. It still has a lot of strength and actually a lot to offer, and that's where they have been sold a narrative by the Imran Khan, like we talked about the Azzemuddin. We talked about Iyaka Na'budu wa Iyaka Nasta'in, right? All this Islamic touch that actually has been sold to the people. And the people are sick and tired of the politics that the previous government actually has done, like the PPP and PML. So they are actually wanting a change. They don't know what the right change is. They've been fooled by the rhetorics and the of the Imran Khan actually coming from the Tariq Insaf essentially. So that's where Dr. Akmal was saying that it's our duty here, whether it's outside overseas Pakistani or inside Pakistan, to actually bring people back to Islam. That Islam is more than just a set of morals and more than just a spiritual aspect of your life. It's really how do you live life. It's a way of actually how you live. It's a way of life essentially. So all aspects of life are governed by Islam. So when you talk about the overseas Pakistani, the youth, the role of that, the role really is that they have been a catalyst and they have been actually active supporter for the Tariq Insaf. And without their help and the money and all, or the other technical support you just mentioned, Pakistan Tariq Insaf would not be in this position that it was able to actually paralyze the whole country for the past 2 days. So you see that there is a vitality, there is a potential among the ummah. We just need to make sure that we connect their emotions with the right thoughts and the concept essentially. And that's the job that we have essentially as our carriers to be able to actually give them the right perspective towards life and how to actually live our life according to Islam.
SubhanAllah, I think that would be a very good way to end this here. Let's connect the emotions to the concepts. But before that, Jazakumullah khairan, Dr. Akmal. I really hope to see you. I know you were here. Apologies for not being able to spend more time. But inshallah, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are able to connect and discuss this further, inshallah Rabbil Alameen. And Brother Azeem Uddin, I think we'll be seeing you tomorrow, inshallah. There is a conference going on, and the conference is about change. It's about what needs to happen, how the Muslims should be looking at the problems that they are facing, the kind of it's amazing. I mean, it's a very right time for this conference, hopefully, and I pray that inshallah tomorrow it will be successful, and at the same time, people come and attend. It's tomorrow at 12 to 5 p.m. at what's the name of the banquet again? Ambience Banquet. If you are in Chicago, it's in Villa Park. Please try to attend it. Bring your families. Bring your children, everyone, because this is the time. Let them see a different. Let them see Islam presented in more ways than what we are used to at the masajid. And with that, brothers and sisters, a final a request for the Muslims, especially from the whole, a request to the Muslims throughout the whole world. Brothers and sisters, we have done in the last few weeks, we are seeing what has happened in Sudan. We are seeing what is happening in Gaza. As we speak, the situation in Gaza is dire. Muslims are literally being bombarded while we speak here. We are seeing the situation in Pakistan, and subhanAllah, it's like we go from one situation to another situation, and there are people, they are keeping us busy in just trying to solve one hurdle after the other. And it's essential, it's high time now that the Muslims go back to the Quran and Sunnah, go back to their real ulama, go back to 1400 years of history, go back to the method of the Prophet ﷺ. What did the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ do in such times, and how did he solve the problems? It is time, brothers and sisters, that we play a more active role in our communities, bring people, youth and Muslims and our communities back to Islam. And even in this country, I mean, look at the chaos, whether it comes to LGBTQ and everything else. Everywhere you go, there's chaos. And the only way to bring that back and humanity back to its place is يخرجون من الظلمات إلى النور. And with that, I'll end this podcast. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from us and you. And Jazakumullahu khairan. We'll see you next week, Saturday. Time has been changed to Saturday at 2 p.m. And with that, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
لا لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر. لا 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 لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر.
صبح بدا نور ظهر، نجم وشمس وقمر، ألقى على الدنيا الدرر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر، كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر.
لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر. لا لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح.